In a sense, I think something really good has come out of Chris's critique or criticism of the hobby, and that is hello and welcome. Victor, the rookie card specialist, coming to you today with some hobby happenings. Wanting to keep it a little bit in this different type of format. I am using Streamyard, and you'll see me using this type of format more often as I get acclimated with it more and more. I see the need for me to transition or pivot into this type of format. I still plan on doing presentation type scholarly content, as they say. But the problem with those is they take so long to produce that I really do need to do something a little bit more streamlined. That's how come I'm using Streamyard. That way I can utilize it for my podcast as well. Now, hello to all my podcast listeners as well. I will make you a promise. I'm going to really try to be mindful of my audience. One of the biggest pet peeves that I have is that content creators who use YouTube to create podcasts content or podcast content to create YouTube videos, and that is in the sharing screen and that sort of thing. I feel like um, there's a disconnect there, and I'm a big time podcast listener, and every time I run across that on a during a podcast episode, where they start showing something and they don't describe it, and it feels like there's a disconnect there, and I think we need to be mindful of our audience and who we're talking to. And so I promise that I'm going to be mindful of that. And if I come across anything like that, I will nip, tuck, and cut that portion of the YouTube video out. That way, you're listening to a clean podcast episode, or I will try to um, explain to you what we're looking at and that sort of thing. Um, but I see the concept of using both sides of using one piece of content to create another. I think that is a valuable option for as content creators. You will see me looking off to the side. I do have notes that I have. It's more of a. I just typed it up on my iPad. It's more of a checklist, bullet points of what I want to touch on because I don't like to waste your time and I like to get to the point. And so if I don't have bullet points or I don't have something um, lined up, I start rambling too much and I start with the ums and the ahs, and it takes me 10 minutes to explain something that could have taken only 1 minute. So that's how come I see the need for notes. I don't care in what profession you are. Most people who speak publicly will come to the podium with some type of notes so that they don't lose their way and start rambling on into other things. Speaking of scholarly content, I want to speak on recent statements made by Chris over at Card Ladder. Now, recently, he made some comments about cornball content being created on YouTube. He felt that the hobby is not going to grow because those who have millionaire status could possibly be turned off by what they see and hear on social media. Clown content creators making cornball content, I believe is the quote. He felt that there should be some more scholarly content created. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, at first glance or at first listen, when I initially heard it, on Instagram, I somewhat agreed with him. Now, hear me out before you stone me. I did agree with him to a certain extent. Why did I agree with him? Because I'm one that gets into scholarly content as well. I am one that likes to produce and stay within that lane. And so I felt like I understood where he was coming from. But the problem with scholarly content is that it's not for everyone. In actuality, it doesn't really get a lot of views either. People have a tendency to be bored of, or they get bored with that type of content. And so now the biggest problem that I saw was that he came off at first glance, he came off a bit prideful. And this can be a problem, I believe, with the academia type community or even the high end hype type content creators. And let me tell you what I mean by that. There's several definitions for being prideful, okay, or having pride in something. There's a pride of lions, right? That's not what we're talking about. There's the pride of being proud of somebody else's accomplishments. You know, my daughter just I just this past Tuesday we went to her graduation honor society ceremony that they had. I was very proud of my daughter for accomplishing that. She worked very hard in achieving that goal. And there's a pride that we take pride in our own accomplishments. We take pride in our work ethic. We might take pride in a project that we took on around the house and we completed it and it came out amazing. And there's that feeling of pride that we take pride in our work type of thing. But then there's this evil side of pride, I believe, and that is the pride that comes off a bit arrogant. It's a pride that puts themselves up here and puts others in a lower status. In if you can visualize it, some kind of like looking down at somebody, and that's what it kind of came off as. And to make the situation even worse, he did another show on Sports Card Anonymous channel, uh, and to make the situation worse, he doubled down on what he said on Instagram, and it's like, oh my goodness, are you serious? Did this guy just go here again? And it was quite interesting. There's actually been a lot of content. I know because I'm Carlos. He did an excellent a couple of videos actually on it, breaking this thing down, doing a kind of like a reaction video to it. I know Sports Card Anonymous, and I know even last night on May 4th, he was on Rolling with FD's channel. And I tell you, quite interesting. Very, very interesting what's happening in that situation. I wanted to show you a video on FD's channel with the interview that FD did with Chris last night. I could not, I didn't have time to punch that in. I have a very short window to record today, so I have to move this along. But I did watch a portion of that video um, right around the 11-minute mark. Um, FD really asked the question, don't you think that good YouTube content, that the viewers decide what's good? And Chris pretty much acknowledged that point. He says that's a solid point to make. But then Chris went on to say or explain what his version of good YouTube content is. And I know that's a broad definition. It's a subjective definition. That's going to be something different for everybody. But he was trying to explain where he was coming from and what he thinks the hobby actually needs to help it grow or to help it progress. And I took some notes, and he basically said good content creation is going to be authentic, it's going to be passionate, it's going to be vulnerable, it's going to be uh, you got to do your preparation and your research, and you use that preparation and research to learn yourself. And only then can you kind of like wrap all those elements together and then be able to teach it to others. And he says that he stays, uh, this is what he believes is the right thing to do to create good scholarly YouTube content. And he felt like that this leads, at least it leads him to being very satisfied and rewarding because he stays true to himself by creating valuable content. All powerful, valid points. My takeaway on all of this, because this started a week ago, and he's still being interviewed on this thing. Listening to everything and everyone and listening to every word that he said, my takeaway is that there's room for all types of content creators. We need the scholarly content, absolutely. But we also need the beginner's class with the exciting high production quality that Jeff Wilson over at Sports Cards Investor can provide. And we definitely need small pockets of community that form naturally through common collecting interest. In other words, let's just say new collectors see Sports Card Investors channel because that's what the algorithm is feeding folks, and the algorithm wants friendly content, valuable content that is easily digestible. When we as and I'm guilty of this myself, but when we get too deep or when we get too much on a rant, it's we kind of like narrow our audience down. And I think when we're looking at YouTube, they want clickable, digestible content. So swarms of people will go to his website and be introduced to the hobby, and he's going to give them the 101 class, but he's also going to give you high content production quality. Okay. That's a good first step. Hopefully, then the the listener or the collector can now graduate to scholarly content where he can now learn the history, where he can learn the lingo, where he can learn the do's and the don'ts. And after that, the natural next step is to get plugged into a community of like-minded individuals. I know I have my group of YouTube content creators are typically people that have the same collecting interest as me. And so you plug into those formats and you kind of they turn into like little small groups, like hubs of different collectors, and there's a place for all of us. We definitely need the high production quality. We definitely need the scholarly, but we also need community, and that's really at the core of the collecting that makes it fun when you're involved in community. So my point is, we all play an important part in the YouTube hobby content creation. Chris also made a statement on FD's interview. You can watch it. I'm going to leave the link to that video, obviously, in the description. You can check it out in its entirety, and I highly recommend you check it out because it is a really good piece of content. But Chris also made a statement on FD's interview about the type of energy that we allow to come off of us is what's going to come back to us. And I kind of felt what he was saying here as well, only because we do have a tendency to be a little negative, and I know I need to be careful what I say here because this is a touchy subject, but I'm guilty of it, guys. So I guess I'm speaking of myself, and I I really do. I have my heart's intention is to keep it positive, but when you get me talking about the rookie card and the different aspects of going to the rookie card and the different the shenanigans that go on, I can get passionate and I can get heated in my discussion. But at times there's a tendency where I can come off negative, and that's not good for the hobby. We all loved the big growth that we had last year in 2021, and things were just exciting, and cards were selling left and right, and card shows and the national experience that we had was just out of this world. Wouldn't we like to have that type of atmosphere year after year? But instead, it seems like people have lost interest, or maybe it's just the war and the inflation that's going on. All the things that are happening in the world could be playing a part in it. I understand that. But I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to speak for myself that I need to do a better job at keeping things positive. I've said it on this channel before in previous videos. but I think it's worth repeating here. With the power of the tongue, we speak life and death into this hobby. So ultimately, the excitement of the hobby buzz is entirely up to us. Now, that doesn't mean that we are ignorant of or we stick our head in the sand of things that are going on. No, we call them out. But we call them out respectfully and we call them out quickly and we move on. To sit here and harp on it, um, video after video, video after video, where it seems like we're only looking to criticize, like we're only looking for the corruption, that we're only looking to call somebody out. There's a time and a place for that. But for the content to be that the majority of the time, it's no good for the hobby. And so it's really up to us, man. Let's keep it positive. Let's be good stewards of the hobby, and let's try to help this thing um, grow. In a sense, I think something really good has come out of Chris's critique or criticism of the hobby, and that is that it made me think. It made me stop and do some self reflection and really pinpoint, what am I doing here? Am I staying the course? Am I being authentic? Am I being passionate about what I'm talking about? And there's times where I'm not feeling it. And there's times where, I push a video out just for the sake of pushing a video out. And I think we got to be careful of that. We can burn out, or we can misrepresent the hobby or misrepresent ourselves when we're tired, or we just want to keep producing content for whatever reason. It can hinder our passion. Vulnerable, that means, am I capable of being criticized? A lot of times when we get criticized, we have a tendency to really get discouraged. And so being vulnerable, being teachable, allowing others to critique us, receiving that critique after we have reflected on that critique. Prepare. How good is my preparation, or am I just pressing record and babbling? um, am I doing my research? Am I careful? I'm Guys, if you knew how much time I spend on some of my videos, it would blow your mind away. But I do that because I want to represent the hobby well. I want to represent my channel well, and I want to. It's not, at least, at the very least, some bullet points, two or three bullet points, that you can, focus on, and not waste people's time with certain things. Am I learning in my research that I'm gathering? Am I formulating thoughts and ideas through the research that I'm developing? And so once I do that, then the fun part is the presentation and all of that. I love doing that kind of stuff. And but I do that because I want to present valuable content. And it really does. And what really resonated with me, what Chris said, was that it really does, when you create content like this, it is really rewarding, and it's really satisfying, because I know that I did everything in my power to put my best foot forward. Now, do I have the best videos on YouTube? Absolutely not. Sometimes, if you're not a big history guy, sometimes my videos are actually rather boring. Um, but I do know that I do my best to represent accurate information, and I try to do it passionately, and I try to do it to the best of my ability. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we can really ask for is, let's do our best. Let's represent the hobby well, and there's room for the for the flash and the big old hello investors. There's room for that. There's room for the scholarly lectures. There's room for the history lessons. There's room for, community based, super collectors over here, rookie card collectors over there, whatever the niche is, there's a community for that niche. Anyways, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. Um, I'm going to have a couple of videos here somewhere. It's going to be one of them is going to be, I tell you, I'm going to give you a scholarly video, which is going to be the origin story of the rookie card. And then the other video, let's just say it's going to be my pickups from last year's national. How about that? Those are the two videos I'm going to leave you. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, take it easy. I'll catch you on the next one.